Welcome to this edition of Inside NCI. I'm Dr. Rick Manrow with NCI's Office of Communications and Education, and joining us today is Dr. Norm Coleman. Dr. Coleman is the Associate Director of NCI's Radiation Research Program, and he's a Senior Investigator in the Radiation Oncology Branch in NCI's Center for Cancer Research. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Coleman.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you tell us what kind of research programs or projects you're currently working on?
So I have a laboratory in the intramural program, and there's something I've been interested in a long time is what happens to the cells that survive radiation. So the cells that are killed, that's wonderful. But are the cells that survive, are they different than the ones you start? And can you somehow take advantage of their change in phenotype to now make them targetable? So we're looking at various doses of radiation given multiple fractions. So in clinical radiation therapy, one gives a certain amount of radiation, usually 5 days a week for 4 or 5 weeks. So what we're seeing now is cells that are exposed after 7 or 8 or 9 fractions. If you look at their genetics and protein expression, they're actually fairly different than the ones you started with. And what we're trying to see now is that there's something about them that now makes them targetable with chemotherapeutic agents. A lot of the molecular targeted drugs we use are dependent on a mutation. And if the cell doesn't have the mutation, you're out of luck. So what we think is that by stressing cells over and over and over again to make them now targeted to chemotherapeutic agents.
Next, I'd like to ask you about some of the specialized initiatives that the Radiation Research Program is supporting. Can you tell us what the primary or major functions and responsibilities of the Radiation Research Program are? Okay,
so the Radiation Research Program is an extramural program, so it's responsible for activities of radiation research off the NCI campus. We have the Radiotherapy Development Branch, which is responsible for grants. We try to sponsor workshops to stimulate new ideas in the field. And we're very much interested in education. We have a molecular radiation therapeutics branch, and the idea of that program is to develop new ways of using radiation and drug combinations. A new program that's engaged in, there's medical countermeasures that are being developed for nuclear terrorism, but some of these could be potentially very effective for cancer therapy as well, for protecting normal tissues, so that group is doing work in that as well. And the third group is the Clinical Radiation Oncology Branch. The major role of that group is to oversee the clinical trials. So when clinical trials are proposed, we're involved in clinical trial review. We're working with CMS and AHRQ for work related to comparative effectiveness research as well.
Another initiative is the Advanced Technology Consortium. What can you tell us about that?
So the Advanced Technology Center is part of a consortium of groups that do quality assurance. And the idea of that is to have means of doing quality assurance for clinical trials. So when you're doing a clinical trial, what you're really studying is the outcome of your intervention because the quality of what you're doing has been standardized.
There have been a number of articles in the press regarding radiation treatment overdoses and substantial variation in the radiation doses emitted by CT scanners, for example. Does NCI have a role in helping to alleviate or remedy these patient safety issues?
Some of these stories are horrendous, but they're less common than most people realize. But again, we want zero complications, so the things we do in NCI are really helpful. And we work again closely with CMS, we work closely with FDA, to help them figure out how to best develop and improve products so they are as safe as possible. So what we try to do is establish both standards and methodologies for doing clinical trials. And what one finds is when they're established, they quickly flow into practice.
You're involved in an effort around planning for and medically addressing radiological and nuclear threats. I'm not sure many people know about this effort, that NCI is involved in it. What can you tell us about it?
So the purpose of this, it's all medically and science-based. If there is a nuclear event, how do you get the best possible care to people who need care? And that includes figuring out how to organize a response so you can have the responders there. But it involves some really outstanding science, which may surprise people. So these are no-noticed events. And the idea is, can you develop medical interventions post-exposure? So if someone is exposed to radiation, you could potentially reduce the effect of the radiation on them. So it's not only led to a very complex systems problem of how do you bring medical care to 200,000 people when they're all showing up instantly, but also how do you bring new science that can potentially mitigate some of their radiation injury?
It seems to me that communications and connectivity would be very important. I understand there's a website that's been created around this effort.
When you have rare events, people have to have sort of full complement of knowledge, but you can't expect someone to be prepared for things they're not likely to see. So we use the concept of advanced cardiac life support, that if you have algorithms available for someone who can quickly have access to them when things appear, they'll be able to manage that. So we created a program with National Library of Medicine called Radiation Emergency Medical Management. So it has all the information one would need to understand, to sort out, to manage a radiation event, and it's all available in a just-in-time format. So it's on the web, it can be downloaded to a computer. There's a PDA system for that now too. And it was so popular that there is now CHEM, which is for Chemical Emergency Medical Management.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Dr. Coleman. This has been a real pleasure, and it's been very informative. I think we've all learned a lot.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
For more information about NCI's radiation research program and other NCI activities, please visit our website at www.cancer.gov. For Inside NCI, I'm Dr. Rick Manroe.